participants. The members of the board from my left are,
Todd Foltz.
I'm Anna Walrapp.
Simone Savino, Share Powers.
We have a new board member who will be joining us very soon, Megan Cochran. And legal staff, we have Susan Johnson-Velez. Is Maya? There she is. Hey. And I'm Maya Horwitz and Mr. Eister. So there's some procedural rules that we need to follow. When your case number and petitioner's name are called, please approach the podium. And please come up if you know you're next. You know, don't just kind of dawdle in the back. Just keep the meeting moving. When you approach the podium, please state your name, address, and confirm that you have been sworn in. The petitioner or its agent will have 10 minutes to make a presentation. All other persons or participants wishing to speak will have 3 minutes. Then the petitioner will have an additional 5 minutes for rebuttal if it's needed. The time periods are stated and will be kept by the board. You'll see the little lights there on the podium. Any information such as pictures or plans that have not previously submitted as part of the petition and that you intend to submit for consideration in support of your petition must be individually presented and accepted by the board. After acceptance by the board, you must submit the item to staff for it to be entered and made into the part of the permanent record. The board bases its decisions on competent and substantial evidence which is submitted and which meets the criteria required by the city's code of ordinances. Please be sure to clearly state your hardship criteria during your presentation. A majority of the board is needed to approve your variance. The variance granted by the board will only be for what is shown on the site plan and will need to be in compliance with any terms or conditions stated by the board. All other city codes will need to be met. If the case is approved, your variance will expire 2 years from the date of the decision. If your case is continued, it will either be continued to next month's VRB agenda or the next available agenda. If the case is denied, you may wish to have the Variance Review Board's decision appealed by the City Council. You must file a petition for the review of the board's decision within 14 days of the board's written decision. You will not be able to pull any permits until the 14-day review period has passed. Your cooperation in ensuring that this meeting is run smoothly is greatly appreciated. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the March 11th
So moved.
VRB board?
So moved.
Yeah,
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Then, Mr. Eister, would you like, oh, I'm sorry?
I have one question. Do we need to give people options to continue because there's only 4 of us tonight, or is it doesn't?
No, it just takes a majority of the members present to.
But I
Make
thought
a
there was something in the
decision on
bylaws that they have the right to move if they
The-
want to because
the-
they can get a split.
So the board approved new
Oh.
rules of procedure 6 months ago, 7
Okay.
months ago now, that removed that requirement. So now it's just a majority of the board.
Okay.
I'm sorry, a majority of the board members present. It used to be a majority of the board, which would have meant they would have had to get everybody's vote here tonight.
Okay.
So I would also like to ask, Madam Chair, if I may, if there are any members of the board who have had any ex parte communications with anyone with respect to any matter on the agenda this evening? Okay, the record reflected all board members have indicated in the negative, and I would also ask if any members of the board have any conflicts of interest with respect to any matter on the agenda this evening. Again, all board members have indicated the negative. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Eister.
Can you all please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
May be seated.
Okay.
Okay,
One,
first case.
one housekeeping item before we get started on the first case. April was designated as the annual board elections for chair and vice chair. With the limited number of people here tonight, I wanted to request if you guys would like to make a motion to extend that to May, or if you would like to do that vote now.
I don't think it
Can we continue it until the next meeting, the May meeting?
Yes.
I'll
sure.
make a motion that we continue it to the May meeting, 2025, 5:30.
Is that the 13th?
May.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
May 13th.
The
May
May 13th
13th.
meeting. Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any, all opposed? Anybody opposed to that? Is that okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll get started on the first case in the agenda tonight, which is VRB-25-08. The owner is Alexander Coffin. The applicant is Philip Ledzen. The property address is 409 West Davis Boulevard. The zoning is residential single family, RS 60. The request is to reduce the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 5 feet. The proposed work is to raise the floor of the existing non-conforming portion of the house to be flush with the existing main level, to decrease flood risk, and to add a second level over the existing rear portion of the house. The code section is section 27-156, table 4-2, schedule of area height, bulk, and placement regulations of RS 60, district setbacks, 25 feet front setback, 20-foot rear setback, and 7-foot side setbacks. This is a overall photo of the lot. This is the site plan that was provided. The area highlighted in blue, the blue dash is the area of concern. The darker blue dash line you see are the principal setbacks as required without a variance. And then the red setbacks are the setbacks for accessory structures. And then we'll zoom in on that. So this is the area of concern, which is this first story portion that extends beyond the setback. So this area is looking to be elevated to 14 inches to match the existing home, and a second story to be added on top. And I have some elevations here. So this is the current front elevation of the house. This is the second story addition that will be stacked on top of the one story after it's elevated. And then the one story goes over the kitchen area as well. So I'll show that here. So the two-story addition extends to this portion and to that rear one-story portion shown here on the site plan. Natural resources found it consistent. The overall footprint of the house is not increasing. The area being raised does not present any tree conflicts. During the construction phase, further changes regarding natural resources may be made to ensure compliance with all other relevant sections to Chapter 27. Transportation, wastewater, water, right-of-way, stormwater, and TECO all found it consistent. And then this is the standards for the Variance Review Board under 27-80. And I'll be available for any questions or concerns.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
If you want to show any photos or documents.
Great, thanks. Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Philip Lenzen. I'm an architect here in Tampa. I actually live on DI as well. My client.
Address and have you been sworn in?
The project.
Your address.
Oh, my address, 621 East Davis Boulevard.
And were you sworn in, please? Were you sworn in when,
Yes, I was.
okay, that's all we need to know.
Okay, sorry, couldn't hear you. So the owner of the property is Alex Coffin. He unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. He's away at work at the moment. But he purchased the house a little bit less than a year ago, and he is wanting to be a good neighbor, so that's why we're doing all this, going through all these things. And what he's doing right now is just investigating ways and options that he has to harden his existing home. And so during Helene, the flood rose and flooded certain portions of the house. He was very fortunate that it didn't flood the main part of the house, but it came very close. So what he's looking to, so what we're here to do is request a variance from the rear setbacks in order to allow Alex to modify his home from future flooding. Additionally, he would like to add that second floor above that single elevation area, which is this little area back here. So this is existing where his existing rear portion of the house. So the proposed project is to raise the two-story house approximately 3 feet to be above the base flood elevation and meet the current flood protection elevation. The original portion of the house was constructed in 1927, and it's one of the original houses on the island. And this was the appeal that was attractive to Alex when he purchased the home, and he would like to preserve the historic nature of the home while protecting it from future flooding. Raising the interior floor elevation best protects against future flooding over other resiliency measures. The home currently has 2 levels. The floor of the rear portion of the house, which is at grade, which is this area right here that he's looking, does protrude beyond the current setbacks. He would like to raise that to match the finished floor of the main part of the house. Alex would also like to extend the second floor to the greatest extent possible over that raised area. Rear single, and then Alex has verified with the structural engineer that the second floor addition is possible over this area. The rear portion of the house currently encroaches the rear setback at an angle. At one corner, it's approximately 5 feet from the existing property line, and in the other corner of the house, it's approximately 9.5 feet away from the property line. In order to raise this area and to build above it, the owner would like to request a rear yard setback, a reduction from 20 feet to 5 feet. So there's no new lot coverage being proposed, only height. So no new impervious area is proposed, leaving the lot coverage unchanged to minimize any stormwater impacts. The current home footprint predates current setback regulations, with a substantial portion of the existing house encroaching into that 20-foot rear yard setback. So the owner does not want to increase any footprint, but he does want to change the height, which would be within zoning height requirements. There's also I highlighted in orange the area that is currently beyond the rear yard setback and the area that he is requesting a variance for. And I think that's it.
Does that conclude your presentation? Have questions from the board?
I have a question. You touched on this, but I'm not 100% clear. So the original structure, when was that back area added?
I don't know. My assumption is it predates the existing zoning setbacks, since it protrudes so much past that. And the house was built in 1927, so I don't know when that addition was put on. There is a difference in the construction. It was clearly an addition. There's a difference in the construction where it's slab on grade with CMU. So, CMU didn't even begin until right around World War II. So it was probably right in late 30s, early 40s is what I'm thinking, we guess.
And this might be a question for staff or both. What's on here tonight is just for a rear yard setback. So there's nothing before us that's in regards to raising the base flood elevation of the home, correct?
That is correct. So because they're not triggering that criteria, they don't have to elevate the whole home. This is something they're wanting to do to increase the overall floor level of that section of the home.
Which section?
The rear section that currently is 14 inches below, that's highlighted there in yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that area, there's a step down, so they're trying to bring that all up to 1.
So like they'll just fill in with concrete?
Yeah, or if there's a fill-in, or depending on the structure of it, they could lift the entire structure.
Yeah, and the owner does want to, I just want to be clear with everybody, the owner does want to build above that to bring it up to be level with the existing height of the house.
Is that part of this request as well?
So if the reduction in setbacks is granted, it would allow them to build to the RS-60 standards which allows them to go to that 35 feet. With this first floor section predating zoning code, as stated, is considered non-conforming now. So it'd be up to the board's decision on how that is.
So, yes, Ms.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. So, what the application is seeking is to vest the existing one-story structure in its current location. And of course, that would be, you know, that's one request. And then the second is to then allow for the addition of a second story above what would now be vested. So, as the board's aware, if it's a non-conforming structure, if something happens to it, if it has to be torn down or is substantially damaged, then it can't be replaced in its current location. Any change has to meet the current setbacks.
Okay. I noticed that on one of the site plans, it was actually 4.88 feet, and they're asking for a variance to 5 feet. So I'm assuming that the new construction, whatever you do, is going to meet that 5-foot setback, because it doesn't right now anyway. Did you realize that?
No, I thought it was, that might just be an error on my side.
I don't think so. It's on the survey.
Yeah. So we were that one corner there, I thought was already at right around 5 feet.
If you look at the survey, it'll show you it's
4.88,
88, I think.
okay,
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was under 5 feet, just so you know.
okay.
And a question for staff, most likely, is anyone gonna look at the ISR for this? I mean, it just looks like the lot is gonna be filled up.
So when they do come in for review, it will be triggered to evaluate green space, evaluate the percentage of coverage, and they'll have to address that, either with documents showing that it's been covered like this historically, or they're gonna have to accommodate I think it's a 1/2-inch rainfall over the property if they exceed that 50% coverage.
Okay. And we have an awful lot of letters from other people, property owners, who have a problem with this variance. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I saw those.
Okay.
And again, the owner's not trying to be a poor neighbor, he just wants to see what his options are, so he just wants to explore.
Okay. Any other questions? That's what I'm just gonna ask. Is anyone here to speak for or against this? Come on down. Please remember to
Hello.
state your name and address and that you've been sworn in.
Yes, I'm Leslie Wager-Hudock. I am a resident of Tampa. I live on the property at 409 Erie Avenue, directly behind the subject property. So I'm here to oppose oh, I'm so sorry, I have been sworn in, yes. What else did I forget?
Good, thank you.
So I have lived behind the subject property for 29 years, and in the status quo, I'm in that corner where the 4.88 corner is. So my backyard is wide open to that view, and to the workers over the years like to sit on that roof and look down. It's a privacy issue as it sits. As it sits, it's legal. I can't do anything about it. But all of us in the neighborhood can tell if they do what they're requesting to do, which is build up, and I'm not even going to get into just the aesthetics of it, it's going to be this massive wall that just overwhelms our backyards. And, you know, I question the hardship issue here, because if you look at the report that they submitted in the file, in the record, they commissioned this engineer to come out well before the storm, okay, before they flooded, because they wanted to put a second story on that area. And that in and of itself is not something that, you know, you can do. If you've got a non-conforming use, you cannot change the structure. And you know, that going up to me is just the same as, you know, increasing within the setback. It's more construction. I don't see how you can draw a distinction between vertical and horizontal. And even if it's within the vertical elevation requirements. So I think fundamentally they have a problem with putting that second story on there. I think the hardship would be if they want to raise what they currently have up a couple feet to get out of flood level. I don't think anybody would object to that. But I don't see how they make their case for building the second story in that area. And it's not just a 5-foot issue, they're like 10 feet encroaching on, you know, the furthest, the portion to the south, which is only in the 9-foot area. I mean, they've got quite a big encroachment, and so this is a big ask, and I object.
Thank you.
Can you double check I've got it on here okay? Maybe if it's not, like, can I make it to where they can see more of the page?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm not very astute on these matters.
There you go.
Okay, thank you so much, Stephen.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
oh, certainly. Debbie Zommerman, 192 Corsica, Davis Island resident, and I've been sworn. With regards to this property, there's a big concern about permanently vesting this setback on a non-conforming structure, which I believe, in council, I'll defer to them, could be permanent regardless of whether or not things change down the future. So that's just a condition to keep in mind, and maybe the council can respond to that. Additionally, a specific concern is the lack of any documentation addressing the actual finished floor levels of both the structure that they want to meet and the structure that currently exists. And if you look at this elevation, it looks like that they are not materially different. I think there needs to be further clarification of what the existing structure is that they want to build up to, and is it adjacent to this part of the structure, and what the existing elevation is right here. And as an island resident that owns multiple properties, all of which had some form of flooding, three of the properties to where they weren't habitable, it looks like this elevation right here, and these, what appear to be doors right here, where my properties were located, would have all had flooding and significantly up that level of the floor, probably 3 feet maybe, around there. I don't know for sure, and each part of the island could be different, but the lack of actually finished floor elevations really does not provide us the analysis to figure out, you know, really what is the materiality of this request. And additionally, with my properties, 4 or 3 of which are on slab, elevating the property is not a viable financial option, or really a viable option, period. So there are other forms of resiliency that I am pursuing, and many others in our neighborhood did very smartly do before the storms, and you can prohibit water from, or greatly defer water from coming into the houses. So many of my neighbors use taping, silicone, there's floodgates. There are a multitude of options that are available for existing homes to provide more resiliency on the home. So with regards to this application, I don't believe it should be approved because there's no evidence of what the actual request is. We don't know what the existing floor is. We don't know what the proposed finished flood or elevation will be. And there's actually no evidence that if they take these actions, they will actually mitigate flooding to any extent that I would feel is necessary for my properties. Again, that's an opinion, but I did have flooding, I'll show you the level, this high in my properties, and I was absolutely not alone on the island, and there are many people with 50% letters, and initially that's what I thought this was. I think if you get a 50% letter, it's a totally different discussion than if it's just something where you're coming in with a request that is potentially just a minimal increase in height, and you're using the floods potentially as a basis that might not be relevant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Hadermoda. I was sworn in, and my address is 412 Erie Avenue. I live right behind the house that wants to build up. Initially, I spoke on the telephone to Mr. Collin, and I was trying to be a good neighbor too, and I agreed to what he said. Subsequently, I know you're not supposed to sign something before you exactly understand all of it, but I did not understand everything, but from now, what I've learned is that there's gonna be a big wall built up, and like when I already open my windows to the back, there's already a door right there, and when I look out onto that. And so I don't think they should be allowed to do this, and mostly I'm gonna have to rely on my neighbors who have testified here before you with regards to the, how far it should come up or go back. But I do know now that there's gonna be, that second floor is gonna be built up. The first floor is gonna be built up to the second floor, and I do object to it. And I feel bad because I was trying to be a good neighbor, but I don't think we should allow this, if you agree. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is anyone else here to speak? Okay. Mr. London, you have rebuttal time, if you'd like.
Again, Mr. Coffin is not trying to be a poor neighbor or anything. He just wanted to present it as an option, something that he was exploring, looking at doing. And we definitely, appreciate everyone's effort in coming out today and talking about it.
Okay. And close the public hearing, and we can hear from the board. So, Stephen, can I ask you a question? So, if we agree to the 5-foot setback, which it already is anyway, I mean, it's 4.88, and I have the survey here. And it also has the floor elevation, that finished floor, as 8.41, just for information out there, because it's come up several times. But can we vet the existing structure but not allow them to build a second story?
Yes, so you can add a condition to the record that they can elevate the existing structure, but not be allowed to do a second story, similar to what you do with carports, where you approve the carport, but then you condition it that it should never be enclosed. You can do something similar to that. Also, in your staff report, I recommended a condition to highlight the generator and the AC equipment, just to make sure that does not encroach. That is on your staff report under the standard conditions. So if you look over that, if you could put that in the conditions as well.
Okay, I'm looking. So the pool and the generator shall meet setbacks as well, so they can't, if we give them a 5-foot, that needs to slide over as well.
It would have to meet the 3-foot required setback.
Okay, I'm sorry,
It's-
3 feet.
Yeah,
yes.
because it shows the slabs here, but it didn't show the exact equipment. So with it being so close to the neighboring property, we wanted to make sure that was covered as well. So it wasn't locked into this site plan
Okay,
specifically.
Susan, I'm sorry.
So,
you forgot.
and I
Yes.
apologize that I didn't do this before the hearing closed, so we might need to reopen it. But the site plan, can you just put up, Stephen? Because I just want to make sure that we have the right drawing, because this says existing main, yeah, it says existing main house on here, so it doesn't really delineate between the 1-story portion versus the 2nd-story portion, and so it just pulls it all the way back, and the setback is, so. Yeah, it doesn't,
They did submit a internal layout of that was in your the original packet that was sent
Yeah.
out, I believe.
Yeah, this was also submitted in the
But you
original
need to-
portion, so this has the whole house with which portion is the,
Yeah. Okay,
I'll make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's reopened. Okay,
So is this part of the plan sheet that's attached to the site plan? Because really what we're looking at for approval purposes would be site plan.
So this, the site plan was the one that was shown with the hashed blue lines.
Yeah.
This is just the internal layout, so you can see which portion they would be looking to elevate, just for like a reference point. So it would be this whole outline portion here.
So then there's another drawing, Stephen, I'm sorry, the second page to that, that says existing upper floor plan. That shows a different. So that shows a different area, right?
Correct.
I
This,
mean-
this area here was the one-story area that was being elevated. It kind of follows this wall here. This area here, I believe, is a separate one-story area that's already on grade with the house.
okay. Anybody else have any questions?
So I think I would recommend that the board get clarification, because it shows two different areas to be raised, or two different shapes. And then I think we would want, just because any decision is gonna be tied to a site plan, to get clarification on the site plan and what's actually the one-story part versus the two-story part.
Yeah, so those are the questions that we have now for the architect and applicant that's present. So can you clarify, this sheet says two different areas to be raised, they're two different shapes?
So just for clarity,
Thought we did, but maybe not. We close the public hearing?
That was my
Okay.
motion.
Okay. No, I wasn't sure if we closed.
on the site plan, this little jog right here, that's the one-story section. And that so in this line here is the current setback. So this area here is what's actually protruding into that's a non-conformity, is this area here is all non-conforming, it's existing. So on the floor plan, on the main floor, this is the area to be raised for the finished floor level at ground level. This would be raised to be flush with the existing house, so it's going up about 14 inches, this area here. And then the area above that is, this is the area below. And then the current house has a one-story section over here, so on the second floor, it's the reason why there's a little difference in there is on the second floor doesn't cover the entire first floor. It's got a little jog in it, which is right there.
I'm sorry, I'm still confused.
So the second, the second floor where you would be adding the second floor includes that, what looks like might be a kitchen or
Yes, the
something in
little
there?
kitchen area.
So that's a one-story
The kitchen's-
portion,
yeah, the
and it's
ki-
going to be two
yes.
stories.
And that whole portion is within
Understood.
that portion's within the setback, so that's not really.
That's not in
yeah,
question.
Yeah, yeah. So really what he's asking for is, it's basically this area here to be raised up that is exceeding the rear yard setback.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments?
My question is, what's before us is what seems to be a very simple request, but there's so many components of this. So like, it's one variance, but I mean, should it have been multiple?
So with the request reducing the primary structure setback, if it was reduced down to the 5 feet or the 4.88, they would be able to do the elevation of the rear portion plus the second story. So it would not have been
Unless we had a condition.
separated out.
Okay, so we would have to add a condition to that if we granted.
That is
If we don't
correct.
approve of the second story addition.
Correct, because you would be reducing the primary structure to allow for the addition that was pre-code, so they could elevate that to the existing ground to the existing finished floor of the existing home, but then you could not approve the second story
Okay.
as a condition.
Okay, you guys.
Yes,
happy?
that's very helpful.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the public hearing
And
again.
I
I'm
just
sorry,
wanted to call the
Susan?
board's attention, so you would also, there is a accessory structure next to the pool that's also within that rear yard setbacks. I think the board would want to be clear about what setback reduction for which, that it's for the main structure only. That's all that's been noticed at this point, so.
Yeah, so can the applicant or maybe staff speak to that? Because if that looks like a 0-foot setback. Is that grandfather, where's that,
So-
what's the status of
so-
that one?
Similar to the home, I went back as far as I could. I went back to the early 80s with satellite imagery. Both of these structures are existing. I know the code predates that. I could not find anything for either the main house or the accessory structure. So it kind of confirms with the house being built in the 20s originally, that these additions were put in the 30s or 40s. They're both non-conforming at this time. So if something would happen to the accessory structure, they would have to build that back to current standards. So the 3-foot setback in the rear and the 3-foot setbacks on the side. They wouldn't be able to build it back to the 0 as it is now.
Thank you for
Thank
pointing
you.
that out.
So if they were rebuilding the whole structure, the blue line represents a buildable area on the lot, right?
That is correct. That dark blue hash line, it has a 7-foot side setback, 25-foot front, 7-foot side, and 20-foot rear.
Okay.
Okay, board discussion?
Did we close the public hearing, or have we already closed
Did we
it?
close the public hearing? Sorry, going back and forth, back and forth. I thought we did. Okay, guys, what are your thoughts?
I'm having a hard time appreciating a hardship for justifying a second floor. I can a second story over that blue portion. I can understand wanting to basically validate the setback that exists because you want to elevate the floor. I understand that, and I think that it would be appropriate. But I'm having a hard time understanding any hardship for more than that.
I tend to agree with you.
I
also.
agree. Well,
also
in
agree.
addition to that, I mean, if that portion of it flooded, why didn't the guest house, and why don't they want to raise that portion of it as well? Like, that's kind of where I'm a little on the fence with finding the hardship.
Yeah.
In addition to, well, are they just trying to do a 2 birds with 1 stone kind of situation here and just get the variance? So
I think granting them variance for the existing structure as it is and allowing them to be able to raise up the floor to a proper flood elevation, but still there's no reason to put that big wall in the back of the property.
I agree.
Accessory structures are limited to 15 feet for a reason, because they're on 3 foot off the property line, and you don't need your back, you don't need a 35-foot wall on the back of right against your back fence.
I agree. It's not a good way to be neighborly.
Okay, you want to try making a motion?
I will give her a shot. Okay.
Yes.
See if I got this right. There it is. Too much paper there. Okay. I move for the variance request for VRB 25-8, located at 409 West Davis Boulevard, as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a reduction in rear yard setback from 20 foot to 5 foot, with encroachments of eaves and gutters for the be granted with the following conditions. That the area outside of the buildable, allowable zoned area be maintained as a single-story structure. It can be brought up to a floodplain, but it's a single-story structure, not a second story. And that the variance as conditioned be granted based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record in the public hearing of a necessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that the this is an existing structure predating the zoning, and it should be allowed to be brought up to a hurricane-rated elevation.
You want a friendly amendment to that?
I'd like to add a condition as well,
You just tell me how, so they can do it.
just to add.
The generator and the
Oh,
pool need to meet that setback
and
as
that the
well.
generator and the pool equipment and air conditioners meet the current setbacks required within the code.
Okay.
And then it only applies to the main structure, the primary structure, not the accessory structure? Or
Correct. And that this, well, the
the
accessory
variance?
structure, wherever it is, I mean, it's already grandfathered in as well, so I don't.
Well, but you're not vesting the location, though. That's what I want to, if the board, right,
Because
that's
it's
not the
tied
request.
to the,
Yeah, just,
The request is only for the primary structure, not the accessory.
yeah, so these conditions and approval is just for the.
Okay, so it also is conditioned that this is only for the primary structure.
And I just wanted, again, I'm just thinking, this is a little
Go
bit
for it.
complicated, but I thought I understood the request to be raising to match the finished floor of the house, not necessarily, because I don't know what the base flood I don't know what that is.
Mhm.
I thought it was
So
only
I-
14 inches. I think probably base flood elevation is gonna be higher than that, so I wanted to make
So
sure.
why would we not allow them to bring it up to, if they were building a new one, a new house to be up to
but you don't want to
base
bring it
elevation?
up 10 feet and,
Because then it would raise it.
I
because
just
then,
don't, I mean,
yeah.
I think the request was for 14 inches, so that's a lot different if it's gonna be 10 feet versus a foot and 2 inches. That's why I just wanted to get clarification, because it's a lot different.
So maximum raise it to meet the level of the existing,
Or just
I really don't have a problem with them raising it to the flood elevation. I mean, it's either 10 or 11 feet. It could be an extra foot, I agree.
I don't know that that's the
I don't
request,
know
or that that's
we're
what
not-
was
that's not
noticed.
being, that's not part of their request, though.
Correct, or what was noticed.
Well, they're only requesting we're only requesting a side yard setback. They're not requesting an elevation. They're only requesting a rear yard setback reduction.
Right,
Well,
but-
honestly,
I
since
think
the
that that's up to
homeowner's not
code.
here, do we even have an exception for that they would accept a condition?
They're not here and they didn't express any,
So I mean, honestly, I think at
Well,
this
they do have
point,
someone
this
present.
almost
So I
should
guess we could
probably be
reopen that.
denied, just because we don't have capability to know that they're gonna accept the condition.
well,
That's fair.
that's what was noticed, and we have to stick with what they requested. We can put conditions on it, and they can, if
Well,
they
they
don't
can just
like it,
vote
they
on
can,
it.
yeah, that would be a good thing.
I would be comfortable if we limited the condition to just the 14 inches. That's what's shown on this site plan. We have to be specific to the site plan. And I want to make sure that that's what it's actually showing. It's hard to see on our screens because the site plan is wiggling around.
I don't think that the site plan is specific enough, honestly.
Okay.
Well, would you, I mean, the site plan is part of your decision, so I don't know if the board.
Elevate it maximum of
Having
4.
some dealt with this, they may not be able to actually do any work with this variance if we limit them to 14 inches. They may have
That's
to raise it
their-
up because of FEMA.
Well,
So-
that's the request that has to come through then.
The
We're not-
request is-
We're not granting, what you're asking to do is put a condition on it. I'm saying we're just granting the side yard setback for the existing structure to be brought up, to rebuild it for the flood. I'm not telling them where the elevation needs to be, they have to go back. I mean, I don't think that that's reasonable to ask them and not
Well-
build it to the flood elevation if they're willing to do that.
Well, the request was, or the proposal was to raise the floor of the existing non-conforming portion of the house to be flush with the existing main level.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's different than maybe base flood elevation. I think
Okay.
it probably is. There hasn't been any test,
But then,
what
if
that
that's the
is,
request,
but-
then we don't need to qualify it, it's already in the request. It says per the request, right, in the site plan?
Right, I think your motion was a little bit different from raising it to match the level. You said to raise it
Okay.
for base flood elevation.
So let me try again.
Okay,
I'll start over, so scratch that motion, I'll restart from scratch and see
These
if I
are
see if I
complicated
get that.
motions, and we appreciate, yeah.
Yes.
All right. I move the variance request for case VRB 24,
Oh, wait, 508.
25-08 for property located at 409 West Davis Boulevard, as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a reduction in rear yard setback from 20 feet to 5 feet with the following conditions: that any construction be limited to a single-story construction, and that the air conditioners, generators, pool equipment meet the code required setbacks. And that said, variance as condition be granted based upon applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence for the record, the public hearing and unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that the existing structure is grandfathered and it predates the zoning codes.
The
Yeah,
main, I'm sorry, the main structure, the
The main
primary-
structure.
Okay, primary structure.
We have a motion, we have a second. What's the question, ladies?
What did I mess up?
I'm just still at a point where the homeowner is not present. And I just feel like this site plan is not to the part to where we can clearly define what they're asking.
The 14 inches, so like, you know, if that's really a factor here that's important, I think it should be on the site plan instead of just the setback. So like, all we have before us is setback, but what they're trying to do with the variance is to raise the floor. So,
I mean, that's their, they could do anything, they could rebuild the structure at the same place.
If we give them the
in
variance.
exact same, but per that site plan, they could rebuild their structure in the exact same place. That's correct, that's what the variance is requested and is granted.
Well, technically no, because it's 4.88 and they asked for 5, so
That's true.
it's still gonna,
So
it's
it's
still
still
gonna be a
not-
problem.
And it's tied, and your approval is tied to the site plan, so
Yes.
I understand if the board is not satisfied with the level of detail that's on the site plan. So you may want to ask the applicant if they would be willing to continue this case, to bring back a site plan that better reflects the proposed work, so that once the site plan is attached to the decision letter, it will accurately reflect what was requested and what the board is approving.
Well,
I'm
No,
just
oh,
a
no, I
suggestion if the
understand.
board wants to
Okay.
move forward.
The site plan that they predicted does request a 5-foot setback. That's their site plan. Now, there's another site plan attached to this that shows existing structure is 4.88, but the one they're requesting shows 5 foot, which is what they're requesting, so they're in conformance with that.
so no matter what, they'd have to rebuild this to that 5 foot.
Or cut the corner off.
Yes, I suppose that's another option. Usually architects don't recommend that, so I wasn't gonna go there. But I think it says to bring it up to the same level as the rest of the house, and I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, that's
So-
what I asked for.
What
That's
I
what
have
I-
what I have a problem with is the fact that we're filling in blanks for someone who hasn't specifically laid it out for us. This is something that's a complicated ask. It could yield varying results, and so I would just rather be comfortable with the decision instead of just kind of guessing.
I mean, what are your opposition?
What needs to be clarified? Like, I don't know where we're filling in any gaps. We're
Yeah,
granting
I'm
it
not-
as they were, we're granting it as
What-
they're asking for, but we're conditioning it not to be a second story.
That's it.
And
And he said that they were looking at that as an option, not that that was necessarily what they were gonna do. They were just kind of,
it's what's vague to me is that it's just not on the documents we're seeing, and it's not on the site plan, and all we're able to approve is the site plan.
What is not on the document?
well, it's a whole application, is it not?
I don't
It's
see
per
it.
site plan.
There is a, okay, so maybe not in there, but in the application,
Yeah, but
There is a
they have
survey.
to have it on the site plan, even though that survey is part of their packet.
it is part of the package.
But
Right,
it's not-
site plan
the
is
site
what moves
plan's
on
completely
to
different.
building and permitting.
I thought it was the whole application.
Site
No,
plan.
So-
site
That's
so-
why your motions say as depicted on the site plan, and so that's why it's good to have the
But it
level of
says,
detail that.
the site
Okay.
plan shows the setback, and it shows a finished floor elevation of 8.41 through the entire main structure. Right there in the middle, FF&E, or FFE 8.41.
Finished floor elevation, 8.41.
Okay, but where, you know, I don't know what that means in terms of the 14 inches. So is it 14
So,
inches differing
this
between
is
what was
saying-
there and what was back? And once again, we're filling in the blanks.
But I don't think we are. I mean, we build this all the time. That is very clearly
It-
on a
yeah.
sort of plan, that is exactly how you would depict it on any plan ever made. 8.41 is exactly how you would do that on a site plan or on a finished floor elevation of an architectural plan. There's no other way to depict that.
I understand, but there could be more clarification here, as far as I'm concerned. there's a whole nother little portion that's gonna also be raised that's not even depicted on this site plan. This is just a very vague,
What part is that? I
where
don't-
he was pointing out, or the applicant was pointing out, where there's a kitchen, but it's part of the original structure, but it's also gonna, the floor is gonna change.
That's not,
It's not part of this request, it's existing and it's
this is
compliant.
just the exterior
so-
outline of the existing structure. All
Right.
that stuff's interior to it, but that's not part of the discussion.
I understand, what I'm saying is I don't think this is enough. I do think there should be a line showing where the floor is different, where they're going to raise it, and the difference that's going to be allowed by this, by what the request ultimately is. In my opinion, that's how I'm looking at
But
it.
they're not requesting us to approve an elevation. They're requesting, they're giving us an elevation, what they're gonna do, so they're tied to that. But they're not requesting a variance for that, nor do we need to give them a variance for the elevation.
The
Because
variance
the
that we,
variance is about the grandfathering in the existing structure where it is.
the variance that we give them allows them to do that. So it's like they need to show us the work, in my opinion, they need to show us the work, because there's some intent here.
I feel that the applicant has not done their part to make the request clear and their material presented clearly as well. I feel like there's just a lot of,
I respectfully disagree
Yeah.
that this is a complete set of drawings, better than most of the ones we get.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
As a
And I'm-
professional, my very professional opinion, this is a very good drawing.
Yeah, I'm an architect.
We're
and
not
I-
gonna get anything better than that.
No, I wouldn't have any problem with the drawings they've submitted, I think they're pretty clear.
I understand, we have a difference of opinion on this specific item. I look at site plans all day, and I know what can go into a request like this. So I think because this is a little bit unique, because, you know, this is a large structure, portions of it are just in locations that could never be rebuilt, I think we have to be very specific with what we're approving. That's just my opinion.
So we had a motion on the floor.
I agree that we should, but I don't understand what we're not being specific about.
What this would allow for is, I think, because the
So-
whole reason it's coming to us is because they want to raise the floor and then also potentially the structure. We can condition them to not raise the structure, but the floor is still kind of not addressed at all within this. And
So,
so it might not get them anywhere, like this might actually not allow them to do anything.
so what are you requesting that they add to this site plan that
I
would make
think
you feel comfortable?
the request should be very clear on what they're trying to achieve with filling in the floor. I mean, I can't imagine that staff didn't think that through, but like to me, if that's what they're trying to do, then it should be very clear, and right now, to me, it's not.
Stephen, can we ask?
We'd have to
Reopen the public.
Oh, well, no, Steve's not part of the public hearing, he's one of the staff, isn't he? You still have to
Do we need
open
to
the public
reopen it?
hearing?
Yeah,
Yes.
we need to reopen if you're gonna.
Reopen the public
I'll make a
hearing?
motion to reopen the public hearing.
second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, board.
Stephen, I think you're back here because we're having a hard time reconciling this site plan with the effect or the intent of what the applicant is trying to achieve. My fear is that this might be a little too vague.
So, to expand off the conversation you were having as the public hearing was closed, the zoning regulates the height. It does not regulate anything below base flood elevation. So if they move forward to permitting with this plan, saying that they can only do 1 story, if they trigger compliance with the floodplain, they're out of compliance with the variance that you guys have granted. So they would, if they receive the variance tonight, they would have to move forward with building plans, provide those numbers, the cost data, all of that information. If they trigger the percentages, then that's a different situation altogether. But the structure could stay as it is, as a 1-story structure, if the variance was granted. If the repairs do need to be done. Like if it does flood and they trigger the 50%, that would have to go away.
Do you have any concerns with the package that we're reviewing and the motion that's?
I believe the package is complete.
But if the board would like to see more details, I mean, I think there, you have two board members who are wanting to see more detail. That's what I'm hearing from the board discussion.
And frankly, I mean, it goes into the hardship, you know, like if this is something that is being requested, it should have been elaborately described within their hardship. I'm not seeing or hearing any of that, other than that there was potentially flooding in some areas of the house and that they want to raise it so that there's no issue. But, you know, all that moves forward after this is the site plan. And so while looking at the site plan, I still just have that reservation. I do appreciate Stephen helping us kind of explain, you know, what we do, how it would move forward.
Anything else?
So I would, again, ask Steve, I'm still confused as to what more information could you require them to provide for this application that would clarify the questions we have on the board?
Based off the board's questions, we could ask for the area being elevated to be highlighted or shaded in gray on the site plan, with the proposed work stating that they wanted to raise the existing floor of the non-conforming portion of the house to flush with the existing main level of the house. I did not think to add that onto the site plan after reviewing it, seeing the current elevations of the home compared to the current elevations of the porch. I saw that they were about 14 inches difference. So I did not flag that as something that needed to be noted on the site plan.
Is it something we should condition so that it says that it's, I don't want to give it to match existing elevation of the.
I think that's with the discretion of the board. No, I mean, I think it's the board's discretion if you would like to see more detail on the site plan, to ask for that, or to make your decision based on the lack of detail on the site plan, or to give the applicant an opportunity to modify the site plan and bring it, if that's the board's pleasure. So those, I think, are the options before you, but I don't.
Can we ask the applicant to, since we've reopened, can we ask?
Sure,
him?
yeah, absolutely.
Public hearing is back open.
I would like to ask you, I guess from what we should have asked and we didn't ask, are you okay with the condition that we put forward? That we
Are you
suggested about
authorized?
limiting
Yeah.
it to a single spot?
Yeah,
Is he
I'm okay with it. Again, I'm not the owner of the
But you
property.
are the applicant, so you're the one
Yes.
representing the owner.
Yes.
And do you, is the application, I believe, states that it is to make it existing to for the rest of the existing home, is that correct? And I don't know what that, do you happen to know what that differential in height is?
On the survey, the existing home, I believe was mentioned, it was 8.94, if I remember correctly, something like that. So historically, the grade on DI is a little over 6 feet. So yeah, 14 inches is probably very close. I don't know for,
So if it was conditioned to match the existing, to match the rest of the existing front side of the structure, would that be an acceptable condition?
yes.
Would that be what we're trying to get accomplished here? Does that clarify what, or do we need more information?
I think that would be correct, but did they come up with the 14 or did the city come up with the 14?
I was going to condition it as matching the existing rest of the house and not try and tell, because I don't want to be off by a half an inch and then
Yeah.
they fail.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think that would work,
Yeah, I would be,
because at least we're overcoming what's not pictured
Okay, so,
with the dotted line.
okay,
Okay.
is that acceptable? Okay.
All right. Anything else? We'll close the public hearing again?
Yep.
Hear from the board.
I appreciate the board bearing with me.
It's okay.
Um,
We want to get it right.
to get through that, I think if we add that condition more specifically, and I do appreciate you kind of amending and hopefully being able to restate.
Absolutely.
I think that will get us there because it will clarify at least what we're seeing with what we are hoping to intend.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Practice makes perfect. All right. I move that the variance request for VRB 25-8, located at 409 West Davis Boulevard, as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a reduction in rear yard setback from 20 foot to 5 foot. That's right. with the following conditions: that it be limited to a single-story structure, the main structure only, and it be limited to a single-story structure, and the slab elevation match the front portion of the existing house as currently exists.
And then the pool and.
And then the pool equipment, air conditioner, and generator all meet the code-required setbacks.
Have a motion, have a
Oh,
second?
I gotta finish.
Second.
Sorry, I gotta
Sorry.
finish this. That said, variance as condition be granted based upon the applicant presenting a competent and substantial, did I miss something?
And just one story.
I did that, that was start, I
Yeah,
said
she,
already.
she did say that.
That was
She did
first.
say that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm sorry, that the said variance be conditioned, as condition be granted based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record of the public hearing for unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in 27-80 of the city code, specifically that this is an existing structure built before the code setbacks, and it would be grandfathered in.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed likewise? Okay,
Thank you.
next.
The next case on tonight's agenda is VRB 25-24. The owner is Justin and Chelsea Martin. The applicant is Franco Otero. The property address is 11318 North Rome Avenue. The zoning is residential single family, RS 100. The request is to reduce the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 12.3 feet. The proposed work is for a new addition, and the code section in reference is section 27-156, table 4-2, schedule of area, height, bulk, and placement regulations, RS 100. District setbacks are 25 feet from the front, 20 feet from the rear, and 7 feet on the sides. There's one previous action on the site, which is BLD-24-050463. Oh, no, you're good. And that's for the proposed addition. This is a map of the site. You can see it's that pentagon shape there. This is a survey. That is not correct.
I was gonna say, I,
So,
no,
yeah. Maps were mislabeled. I apologize for that. This is the lot in question. It's 80 by 100. The addition is this rear hashed gray area. And you can, there is a portion of the existing house that does already extend out to 12.3 feet. As you can see on the survey highlighted there with the pink highlighter. And they plan on, they want to plan out the addition, and then that addition does meet current setbacks besides the setback they're asking to reduce. Natural Resources found it consistent. At the time of construction, a full tree survey will be required to verify any trees that are in the side yard. Transportation, wastewater, both found it consistent. Water had no comment as of 3/19/25. Right-of-way found it consistent, stormwater found it consistent, and TECO found it consistent with conditions as well. And then the hardship criteria as stated by 2780. And I'm available for any comments, questions, or concerns.
thank you, sir.
Good evening. Francisco J. Otero Casio, 13014 North Del Mabry Highway. I'm the applicant, and I'm also going to be the contractor of record if it gets approved. This is, I've been sworn in, sorry about that.
Okay,
All right, we are respectfully requesting a variance to the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 12.3 feet. The purpose of this variance request is for an addition. We submitted plans to the city building department and were notified of the encroachment. We have addressed all the comments in relation to permit number BLD-24-0504603, and the development review staff has found our request consistent, and as staff said, only Natural Resources has commented with the condition that at the time of permitting, we get a tree survey for the protected tree on the side of the house, which we will. And Just want to put back I learned a lot from the previous case, so I'm going to highlight the stuff that will help me here.
Yes, thank
This
you.
is the actual, in the gray area, our proposed addition. And as the city staff, Steve said that, this was my nephew's home, and they purchased it a little over less than 2 years ago. And during the permitting of this, we submitted the plans, and part of the existing house already was encroaching on the 20-foot setback, which we didn't know. The house was built in 1958, so if this variance is approved, it'll rectify that encroachment too. So I just want to address that, but again, this is the addition part that we are requesting the variance for, and we are still going to meet the side setbacks, and the only request that we're asking is the rear yard setback. Then I want to show you a picture of the area we are talking about. Okay, this is the rear, and then this is the area right here where we're just going to square this off to make it symmetrical, and this is the area of the addition. So the plans basically will make the house symmetrical if approved. And again, the plans have been submitted, and all the comments have been addressed, and the only issue now is the variance. And here's a picture of the rear of the property. This tree is going to remain. We're going to protect it. And then I do have a support letter from the neighbor on the north that I want to present. And we were in discussion with the adjacent property owners. And as of tonight, we have received no objection to this. And then in relation to the hardship, again, I think the practical difficulty is that, unbeknownst to them, when they purchased the house, they had no idea the existing house was encroaching the 20-foot setback. But again, this variance, if approved, will rectify that and allow for our application to go through. Thank you.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions from the board? Okay, sorry, just getting this letter. Okay. Anyone here to speak for or against? Okay. You still have time for rebuttal if you'd like to add anything.
I know. Well, my niece-in-law wanted me to bring her a picture of the kids for the addition. That's the purpose of the addition, but I forgot the picture of the newborn. So, but again, I respectfully ask that you approve the petition. We feel it's in compliance with the city code.
Thank you. Okay. Close the public hearing. I'm sorry, hear from the board. Sorry, we're reading the letter that you just handed in. Any questions? Comments?
No. We don't have the size of that tree. I mean, I understand what natural resources conditioned. I'm comfortable with their language. So.
Okay.
This letter is describing, it's supported, but it's also discussing the tree, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had other issues he was dealing with, but
Okay.
again, this is here and just for the variance for us.
Okay, thank you. All right, so, everybody ready for a motion, further discussion? Go for it.
Sure, I'll make a motion. All right. I move that the variance request for VRB 25-24 for property located at 11318 North Rome Avenue be granted as depicted upon the site plan presented at the public hearing for a reduce in setback of 20 feet to 12.3 feet with an encroachment for eaves and gutters with the following conditions, wrong one, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that this house was built predated code, was a pre-existing condition, and the home itself is fairly small for a family of 4 in terms of square footage.
Okay. A motion, we have a second?
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as stated signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise? Your motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
What? Stephen? Yes. Yes, sir.
All right. So the next case on the agenda is VRB-25-26. The owner is Metropolitan Ministries, Inc. The applicant is Addie Mintry. The property address is 2101 North Florida Avenue. The zoning is commercial intensive. They have three requests as part of this variance. One is an increase of 97 square feet for a ground sign. Number 2 is an increase of 14.66 square feet for allowable electronic messaging sign size, and then a decrease in the setback by 10 feet from both North Florida and East Francis. And we'll break that down a little more as we go through. The proposed work is replacing a ground sign for Metropolitan Ministries at the northeast corner of North Florida Ave and East Francis Avenue. This sign will upgrade the existing advertising with an updated logo, better visibility, and EMC. The proposed work portion is provided by the applicant, not provided by the city. That's part of their application.
Thank you.
I just wanted to specify. The code section and reference are section 27-289.3 for freestanding signs, and section 27-289.4, additional regulations for specific sign types and special district alternative sign plans. And that's what the EMC sign falls under, that 27-289.4. So this is a map of the site. Metropolitan Ministries owns a few other properties within this area as well. This is the location of the new sign, showing it 5 feet off of both North Florida and 5 feet off of East Francis, just to provide the dimension. And then here's a close-up for that portion of the variance. This is a elevation of the sign that's being proposed. The increase in overall square footage is due to, if you look at the side columns of the sign, how they have the Metropolitan Ministries logo, that is considered signage by the City of Tampa Code. So that leads to the overall increase in signage. And then the messaging board, as you see, that has the group of people on it, that is the EMC portion of the sign that they're asking for an increase for. And then due to the height of the sign, it would have a 15-foot setback from both North Florida and East Francis. And that's where the 10-foot reduction comes into play.
Thank you, sir.
Comments: natural resources, transportation, wastewater, water, right-of-way, stormwater. Found it consistent with didn't have a comment. I do want to point out TECO did not have a comment as of 3/19/2025. There are power lines in that area in close proximity to the sign, so they would have to address any of those concerns, even with the granting of the variance. So if TECO deems the power lines are too close to the sign, those adjustments would have to be made. They could be made increasing, so they could go beyond 5 feet, but they could still get no closer than 5, as shown on the variance.
And transportation didn't have any problem with the site triangle at that intersection?
They did not. Florida, and that portion is one way,
Okay,
I believe, so they didn't have any comment on that part.
great, thank you.
And then here's the standard section for 2780, and then I'm available for any comments.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Board. Addie Mentry, 13266 Bird Drive, Odessa, Florida. I have been sworn in. Tonight, I'm here to ask for a variance for a ground sign for Metropolitan Ministries, as Stephen has already presented. This is located at 2101 North Florida Avenue. Vicinity map, so we're looking just north of downtown, right on Florida Avenue. This is the parcel map. So this is located on one of the most northern parcels that Metropolitan Ministries owns on their campus. But this is a full campus map just to lay out how many parcels and buildings they do own in this area. So they own about 1,000 feet along Florida Avenue and about 600 feet and another kind of 50 along a more northern part of North Tampa Street. So we're really looking at the North Florida Avenue corridor where there's going to be traffic coming from downtown or north on Florida. This is just another kind of aerial map to show the 5 parcels of the campus. And it shows the proposed sign location that's going to be on parcel 3 right at the top along Francis Avenue. So just a little bit about Metropolitan Ministries. I'm sure you are aware they're a big community partner with the city of Tampa, but really the mission is to care for the homeless and at-risk youth, families, children. So their 3 pillars are to alleviate suffering, promote dignity, and to install self-sufficiency. Last year, through their impact, they served over 2 million meals. They housed over 100,000 families, children, and their parents. Over 30,000 received holiday assistance. 10,000 families went through their family support centers, and they had 21,000 volunteers, which was on average a $4.8 million donation from their volunteers and the hours. They also had a very big impact from Hurricanes Helene and Milton. They housed 148 families and 300 children that stayed on site with them during those storms. They contributed $2 million in hurricane relief expenses. They provided 1,200 nights of shelter for displaced families and children, and they added 4,000 more families to their holiday assistance program because they were impacted from the storms. So through that, and with changes and updates they're going to make to their campus, they want to have better visibility and identification and advertising for these services along Florida. So this is the sign that Stephen presented, and you can see on the sides there is the Metropolitan Ministries logo, which adds to the variance for the increased signage. It includes the EMC, and that is mainly to provide messaging for the public, for the services that they provide. And with the storms, the intent here is to ensure that there is public outreach and public messaging for emergencies, for those services, and upcoming events and things like that. So this is kind of the logistics of the sign. It's going to be 20 feet tall. The cabinet is 11 feet tall. This will replace an existing sign that is in this same location. That current sign is 15 feet, so this is 5 feet higher than that sign is. Most of that sign is a pole, and I'll show you what that existing sign looks like, but it's a pole and then a cabinet. On top of it, we really wanted to utilize this for a large portion of advertising and to ensure that visibility along that corridor is able to be seen. So our proposed variances are an increase of 97 square feet, an increase of 14.66 feet for the EMC, which is included in the 97 square feet, and then a decrease in the 10 feet setback from both Florida and Francis. So here's the setback that Stephen showed you. It's in our application, and just a larger portion of what that would be. So 5 feet from both Francis and Florida. there is existing parking for the site that is there. It's a resale shop, I believe, and there's limited parking, and that parking serves for both the campus and the resale center. And so we did not want to take up parking spaces with these. So we would need the setback from Florida anyway, but we did not want to take up more, parking spaces for foundations from Francis, which is why the setback is asked from Francis as well. So this is the existing sign that is there now that this sign will replace. You can see it's pretty small. It is high, but it's not very visible for traffic, which is why we want to have this sign there. There's also, here's another photo of it from the north looking over. And then you can see the parking that is there to utilize for the main campus and also this resale shop. Here's that parking lot. It's pretty full all the time. And so that's why that setback request is from Francis. So I just wanted to point out this site is a site that is at the corner of Ross and Florida. It's about 600 feet south of where we're gonna put the proposed sign. This is the only sign that faces drivers on Florida and is a big reason why we want to place this sign and replace the sign that is there. Because other than this, this is the only other signage that is there on Florida for Metropolitan Ministries, and this is parallel to parallel to Florida, and so we really are trying to ensure that this kind of visibility is there for this entire campus, while it is on this parcel for the entire campus, and ensuring that this EMC is there for these services and advertising. So you can see in the top corner where this parallel sign is for Metropolitan Ministries, and then across the street where the existing sign would be, where we would replace that sign. So just to give some wayfinding. So just kind of the alleged hardships. So difficulties are unique and singular, kind of the scale of this campus and where it is proposed. I mean, it's between two major thoroughfares. The signage that is there is not really adequate to show, what is there unless you really do know what is there. It also, right now the signage doesn't say what, their future events are or what their services are, and we really want to get that out there, especially with needing and having future storms or needing to future public outreach, and just the value that they bring. We really think that they need a sign that is this large to be to bring awareness. It's practical and does not result from the actions. We don't really believe it does fall under a result of the actions, because we are replacing a sign that is there in proportion to the scale of the parcel and the campus, and the parcel configuration there as shown with the parking and the existing conditions. We really wanted to ensure that we weren't taking up parking spaces for those people who are having to come to that site and get meals or get donations, or volunteers who are coming there. We really wanted to ensure that the footprint of that sign stayed where it already was. If granted, it will not interfere or injure public health. We believe that it will serve for public outreach, and that the proportion of the visibility on Florida with the speed limit of traffic will provide ample visibility. So we do not, and we didn't have any objection from transportation on the visibility triangle there, so we don't believe that it will injure or affect health and safety. It is in harmony. We do believe that it is in harmony with the general intent of the chapter and the Tampa Comprehensive Plan, with the community connection, this kind of elevated signage and the aesthetics with this campus and the corridor, and to support, messages of public safety. And then if the variance will result in substantial justice, we do believe it will result in substantial justice for the public due to the individual hardships and the impact of the denial. I'm here
Thank you very much.
to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board? Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification.
Yes.
So you mentioned the content of the sign would be, announcements about donations or things like that, and you also have mentioned advertising a couple of times, so I just wanted to get clarification on that. Were you talking about commercial advertising or advertising the services of?
Services at Metro.
Metro
No,
County, okay.
yeah, so services, food drives to get donors in there. Really, the intent is like for emergencies during the storms, like advertising, hey, we have
Shelters.
shelter, hey, we have food here, things like that, not off-site
Okay.
advertising.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. I just
You're
wanted to
welcome.
get clarification.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have
Yes,
one
ma'am.
question. So from so the electronic portion, is there any factors with how bright it is, or is there anyone who is kind of within sight distance of where this sign is that live there, or is it just really encompassed by the campus?
No, I mean, it is mostly encompassed by the campus. To the north is Cathedral Cigars. There is also in 287.4, that's the section, there is brightness code in there, and when you submit to permitting for an EMC, you have to submit a material sheet to show that it does not go over the lumens in which is necessary to approve that.
Okay. Anything else? I'm sorry? Okay. Anyone here to speak for or against? You have rebuttal time if you'd like.
No, we respectfully request approval. We really think it's going to help the community. The Metro has a similar size sign on Tampa, and so we think congruently it will help, and that has also helped public outreach. That sign does not have an EMC, it has a reader board, so that sign is utilized for messaging, but it's changeable, and so here we wanted to make it easier time-wise and to just ensure that messages were getting out there faster.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and hear from the board.
I personally have been in this area and could have used better signage.
Okay. You want to make that form of a motion?
Sure. I guess that's what happens when you start talking.
I can't make, I'm the chair, so I can't make a
I know,
motion. I'm
I know.
at the mercy of you guys.
It's all good. It's all
It's one of
good.
the perks of being the chair.
Yeah. Okay.
I still have PTSD for the first one.
Oh, gosh.
I move that the variance request for case VRB 25-26 for the property located at 2101 North Florida Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for an increase of 97 square feet for the ground signage, an increase of 14.66 square feet in allowable EMC size, a decrease in the setback by 10 feet from both North Florida and East Francis, with an encroachment for eaves and gutters, even though that there's no eaves and gutters on the signage, but just putting it out there. Based upon the application presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the five hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that increase in signage will assist with public transportation and direction. It will also assist with providing awareness to those who are in hardship and in need. I felt like the signage is in scale according to the campus, and it will benefit those in the community as a whole.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Question. All in favor of the motion as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise? Motion passes. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is VRB-25-27. The owner is the Diocese of St. Petersburg. The applicant is Addie Mentry. The property address is 3515 North Florida Avenue. The zoning is residential multifamily, RM24. The request is for an additional sign on the flanking entrance, which is classified as a freestanding sign, totaling 40 square feet, 20 square feet for each side of the entrance, and then requesting a reduction in setback from 5 feet, allowing the signage to be placed on the existing wall. The proposed work is adding a copy to the existing flanking entrance walls located at the entrance off of Florida Avenue. Flanking walls were constructed for privacy and the intent to add road visibility identification, as the church does not have any other identifying factor identification for the Sacred Heart North Campus. So churches fall under a different section of the code. They do not fall under the general sign code, which was 27289 that was discussed in the previous variance. The section that applies to churches is section 27-132, which is the special use criteria, which allows one wall, pylon, or ground sign is allowed at the street frontage if it does not exceed 18 feet in height on arterial or collector streets, or 10 feet on local streets, with a maximum display area of 32 square feet. The sign must be set back 15 feet from the right-of-way line and 30 feet from any right-of-way intersection. So that's why this one is worded differently compared to the previous one.
Okay.
This is a map of the site in question. This is a site plan. I know this is a little blurry, so I have a zoom in of what we're gonna be looking at. The two flanking signs are in this light blue cloud here. Just a zoom in to show the existing walls. And then here's a photo of the site. So the fence and columns are already existing. The Sacred Heart currently has the one sign it's painted onto the wall. It's with black lettering. They want to add the additional sign to the other side.
Oh.
So you have two signs, one on each wall.
Mm-hmm.
Natural resources, transportation, wastewater, found it consistent. Water had no comment as of 3/19. Right-of-way, stormwater, both found it consistent. And TECO had no comment. And then here's their criteria under 2780 for variance review. And then I'm available for any comments or concerns.
Thank you. And I see Ms. Mentry is the applicant for this one as well.
Hello again, Addie Mentry, 13266 Bird Drive, Odessa, Florida. I have been sworn in. So tonight I am also here to talk about Sacred Heart and their North Campus on Florida Avenue. So here's a vicinity map. So we're looking at just north of downtown on North Florida Avenue. This is the parcel map. So you can see it fronts both North Florida Avenue and East Lake Avenue. It has 3 buildings and it houses their running track. So our proposed variance request is an additional sign on the existing flaking entrance freestanding signs, both totaling 40 square feet. So each is 20 square feet, one for each side of the entrance. We're also requesting a reduction in setback by 5 feet, allowing the signage to be located on the property line, which I believe is supposed to be 15 feet. There's supposed to be a 1 in front of that 5, so I apologize. Setback in 15 feet, allowing the signage to be located at the property line. That is because this verbiage or copy will be installed on flanking walls that are attached to a fence that was put in 2020, and we can't move them. So this is the copy that will be there. So like Steven said, one is already there and it is painted. The proposal is to paint over that yes.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt for a second? Everything we've gotten says 5 feet. Is that what was noticed?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
Yeah.
What was it?
Was that what, did you notice for 5 feet, or did you notice for
Let me see.
Lisa, can you pull up the Good neighbor notice.
She said I had to start looking at everything.
Requesting an additional sign on flanking entrance, freestanding signage total 40 square feet, 20 square feet per sign of the entrance. Requesting a reduction in setback by 5.
It is 5 feet,
Allowing the signage to be located.
and that's pulled from the website. So that's on my application as well.
So it's
Can we
supposed to
just
be 5
amend that?
feet? No, it was noticed that way. All of the people around it, so it would
That's
have to be
right.
renoticed.
Yeah, the issue is that they think it's gonna be 5 feet back.
It's
Or
gonna
a
be even
reduction
further
by,
than 5.
yeah, a reduction by 5 feet, right.
Instead of 15, yeah.
Oh, reduction. Okay,
By 5, which would mean 10
Yes.
feet
Yeah.
would be setback instead of
Yeah.
the property, yeah.
right,
Right,
right.
So,
Ooh,
misnoticed.
yeah, I think we need to,
think we need a continuance.
Because we're here, can we just continue to the next meeting?
if the board would like to continue to the next meeting.
Do they have time to put out notice for that,
When is
I-
the,
to fix the,
Well, they have to, I don't know how many they have to send out to, but
For May, she would have to notice this week.
when is the?
I can do that. I can do that.
For May, she has till April the 13th to renotice.
That's
to
fine. I can make that happen.
13th.
Okay.
midday.
okay, so I think, should we just make a motion for a continuance?
Yeah, oh,
Then-
yeah.
Okay. You good with doing a continuance?
Yeah,
Okay, wait,
yes,
wait,
please,
wait.
yes.
So were we even hearing this? Was this, any of this valid part of the presentation? Are we in,
I think it needs to be renoticed and,
yeah,
Yeah.
so it needs to
Yes.
be withdrawn and reapplied, or?
no,
Just do it
continuing the
continue?
case.
Continue
Okay.
to fix the notice.
Okay.
Okay,
Then we need- So we need,
Close the public
need a
hearing.
motion.
okay, we'll close the public hearing and hear from the board.
Well, oh.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Make a
Susan.
Yeah,
motion.
I'll make a
No,
motion.
it's okay.
Well, and sorry, does the applicant agree to that? Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I move that the variance request for case VRB 25-27, located at 3515 North Florida Avenue, be moved to the hearing to be continued, for continuance to be continued to the May 13th, 2025 public hearing at 5:30.
And can you just announce the location, City Council Chambers and 315 East Kennedy Boulevard?
Yes, at the City Council Chambers, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard.
Thank you.
Suite 3,
It's Council Chambers.
Council Chambers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Call a question, if anyone, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed likewise?
you.
Okay, we'll see you next month.
So this is the last case on the agenda tonight, which is VRB 25-28. The owner is Neil and Camelia White. The applicant is Fred Henry. The property address is 2815 West Pearl Avenue. The zoning is residential single family, RS 60. The request is to reduce the accessory structure front setback on the southwest corner from 60 feet to 24 foot. The proposed work is to construct a detached garage for a new single-family home. The code section in reference is section 27-290, Schedule of Area Height Bulk Placement Regulations for Accessory Structures, 60-foot front setback, 3-foot rear setback, and 3-foot side setbacks. The previous actions are SPR for the proposed home. There has already been a release of easement completed, and then design exception for transportation for the angled driveway apron. This is the site in reference, which is the pentagon-shaped lot along Pearl Avenue. This is a site plan showing the proposed house and detached garage. This is a close-up of the detached garage. As you can see from the closest corner, it is 24.3 feet. And then on the opposite corner is up to 41.75 feet. So it's on a pretty sharp angle. Natural resources found it consistent with conditions in that they meet all building requests at the time of construction. Transportation found it consistent. Wastewater found it consistent. Water had no comment. Right-of-way found it consistent. ROE-25-6 has received all approvals and is scheduled for 3/6/2025 City Council consent agenda. No conflict with proposed VRB plan. Stormwater found it inconsistent. The proposed garage is on top of an existing utility easement, which was addressed by right-of-way in that ROE-25-06. No permanent structures are allowed in the easements. Please submit a copy of the release of easement. And then TICO found it consistent with conditions. And then this is the criteria under section 2780 for variances. And then I'm available for any comments, questions, or concerns.
Thank you. Is the applicant here?
Thank you,
What?
Stephen.
Do you want the doc camera?
You're right.
What's that?
Do you want the document camera?
Just that. That's all I need there. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I need to be sworn in, please.
Do you swear or affirm this letter you tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you. Fred Henry Domain Homes. Good evening, everybody.
Address?
Sir, you need to
And-
state your address and that you've been sworn in.
And Domain Homes, 3104 North Armenia Avenue, Suite 2, Tampa, Florida, 33607. And I'm on here on behalf of the homeowners that are right here behind me. I wanted to speak a little bit after I get done. I'll keep it brief. Staff did a great job with that. I appreciate that. If I could, I'll just read the, I'm sorry?
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I've been sworn.
Thank you.
I didn't know.
We're very picky about these things.
Happy. Thank you for the reminder. So what I'd like to do is just go ahead and read it, if you prefer, the statement of hardship, and get that out of the way first, and then I'll just give you a quick presentation, and they're gonna say a couple of words here. So the variance as requested is reduce accessory structure front setback on southwest corner from 60 feet to 24 feet. This is to go for construction of a new detached garage for a new single-family home. This is all due to hurricane damage. The alleged hardships or practical difficulties are unique and singular with respect to the property or with respect to a structure or building thereon, and are not those suffered in common with other properties, structures, or buildings similarly located. This hardship is unique to this 1971 lot of record property, as the parcel is irregular shaped. Granting the variance will not confer special privileges that are denied to others within the same zone district, as this condition is unique to this property, and of course we saw that. The hardship or practical difficulty does not result from the actions of the applicant. A self-created hardship or practical difficulty shall not justify the variance. This variance request for reduction of front setback for an accessory structure is solely due to the shape of the lot of record and not due to any actions of the applicant. The variance, if granted, will not substantially interfere with or injure the health, safety, or welfare of others whose property would be affected by allowance of the variance. Granting of this variance will not create any negative impacts on the health and safety of the principal parcel or neighboring properties. This request would allow for a new single-family home with a detached garage to replace the existing hurricane-damaged home. The variance is in harmony with and serves the general intent and purpose of this chapter and the adopted Tampa Comprehensive Plan. This variance request is in harmony with Tampa's Comprehensive Plan by allowing a new single-family home with detached garage to be added to the Ballast Point neighborhood. The addition of this home complies with the Ballast Point goals in the Tampa Comprehensive Plan by maintaining the overall low-density residential character of the Ballast Point neighborhood and is in keeping with the residential character of the streets. Allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done, considering both the public benefits intended to be secured by this chapter and the individual hardships or practical difficulties that will be suffered due to the failure of the board to grant a variance. Granting this variance request for reduction of front setback for accessory structure has merit in that it allows for construction of a detached garage for a new single-family home on an irregular shaped lot. So I appreciate you listening to that. Basically, to go with what Stephen was saying, and is that release of easement, just to add a little bit to that, and I think Stephen's aware, I think council passed it. This is a SELA printout. It was approved per resolution, there's a resolution number, just waiting for it to be recorded in the public records, so that's good news on the rear easement. Just wanted to get that squared away. And so the recordation should be soon, hopefully. And just to speak to a little bit about the project and to go along with what Stephen was saying, there's kind of like these old plats, they're kind of fun. 1971, and there's a lot of record right there. Show you a little bit about the size. It is very unique in that that western side is just under 50 feet deep. So complying with the 60-foot front setback requirement would be a challenge. And you can see the site plan there. Basically, we're, saying the garage on this side, house over here. The 20-foot setback, you can see, is right to the corner. So that complies with zoning, which is perfect. And front setback here complies. We've also got a little room for a backyard in that corner, some room in between. Detached garage, we've got a 4 1/4 setbacks, which are, again, you can go less, but really that's for accessibility and fire code, which is important. And to give you a little more to go with that, I believe this is in the record also, tried a few different placements for that garage, just to show you some grids of how that 25-foot front setback runs across there. If the garage were to comply with 60-foot front setback, that's where it would be, complying with a 20-foot rear setback. Again, just a very unique shaped lot that the folks have here. And just a little bit more information, and I'll let the clients, the owners come up here and speak a little bit. This is a picture of the home before all the damage and all that, just a beautiful house, actually. And they sent over some pictures here of, they can talk a little more about when the storm came in and stuff like that. Stuff you've seen already on TV. This is the school down the street. Stuff out in the curb. I think that was all your stuff, wasn't it, outside? And this is, I think, just a storm picture out front. Yeah, so yeah. That was a summer storm. Yeah, that was a summer storm. So, yeah, it's sad. But I really think that this will be in keeping with the folks in the neighborhood. I've also brought with me, and I've uploaded to the record, 12 letters of support. They're assigned from the neighbor folk, and I'll give that to you. And they're all the same letter, but they've all signed it and said that they were agreeing with what was proposed for the property there. I think they all just missed their neighbors, to be honest with you. So they're looking for you to move back in, but yeah. But I'm here for any questions you may have. I'll let homeowners come up and speak here if they'd like to a little bit. I really appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Come on up.
Neil White, I have been sworn in.
Yeah, that would be his.
That should be the end of his presentation, and then.
I don't think so. I think he still has time left on the clock. He can still use it to however he likes.
Would they be someone speaking for or against?
I didn't want to keep y'all here too late.
He's the owner of the
No.
house.
Okay.
Yeah, he's part of the presentation. I'm sorry we interrupted you. Name,
No.
address, and if
Neil
you've been
White,
sworn in.
I'm the owner.
Part of my presentation, so.
Okay.
2815 West Pearl Avenue. I have been sworn in, and my wife Cammie, the other owner. Just real quickly, we bought this house in 1999 when we were much younger and before I needed readers. Raised our daughters there. They went to Ballast Point Elementary School. Our youngest is graduating from Robinson here in a couple weeks. That last photo, our street floods during summer storms a lot. Unfortunately, it flooded during Milton, like a lot of people in Tampa Bay and West Florida.
What was that one there? It's stuck in there. I think it's, oh, there it is, on the bottom there. Is it?
Anyway, so
Yeah.
a long history of flooding without hurricanes. After Hurricane Milton, that was the first time it ever flooded in the house. Our garage has flooded multiple times with summer storms. So with the decision-making process, we were like, what do we want to do? We love our neighborhood. It's our community. We've been there 25, 26 years. We don't want to go anywhere else. So we wanted to build a house, kind of like city, county, state. Everybody wants us to build, base flood elevation, hurricane resistant, and mitigating any future risk of flood and wind. So we've decided to build a new home. This new home, we would like to have a full bedroom and full bath downstairs as we get older. Not that old yet, but as we get older. And thus the detached garage allows us to do that because of the odd shape of our lot. And we have a lot of support from, all those letters are from our immediate neighbors. We would just love to, get respectfully your approval on this and move forward and get back into our neighborhood. We're all pretty close there. You go through this hurricane on our street where it ends at Tyson and Russell, there's about 20 homes. 5 homes are 2-story structures. As you can see, one of them across the street from us. At the end of Russell and the end of Tyson is the highest point of our street. Our street's like a J. It's almost like a bowl, like a concave. It gets higher as you move away. And of the 15 remaining single-story homes, 13 of them flooded during Hurricane Milton. We're all pretty close-knit, especially going through that hurricane together. So we just, love to get something going here and get back in our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And may I answer any questions you might have?
Does this conclude your presentation? I guess it does, because the
It'll
light just
conclude
went off.
presentation.
Okay, questions from the board? Okay, anyone here to speak for or against? You're welcome to rebuttal, but I think you did a good job.
Yeah, I just appreciate you guys' time, and, I feel like I'm visiting often these days, but,
We thought you looked familiar.
but I don't mind stopping by and say hello. I appreciate
Okay,
it.
Thank you. Close public hearing and hear from the board.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Please
Go
do.
for it.
All right. I'd like to move that the variance request for case VRB 25-28 for property located at 2815 West Pearl Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a request to reduce the accessory structure front setback on the southwest corner of the property from 60 feet to 24 feet. With an encroachment for the eaves gutters, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record, and that at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, but specifically that this is a unique pentagon-shaped lot that was platted in 1971 that maintains difficult setbacks or challenging setbacks for a detached garage structure. And this approval would allow them to place it at the location they desire.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, we call the question. All those in favor of the motion as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise? The motion
Thank you.
carries. And unless Susan or Stephen have any further business, we're adjourned.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you all.